Hey guys! Tonight, we're leaving behind the bright lights of the modern world and traveling back more than 2,000 years to a land of marble temples, olive groves, quiet villages, and bustling city-states. This is ancient Greece, a civilization remembered for philosophy, science, mathematics, democracy, and stories that have survived for thousands of years. Yet even among its greatest achievements, there remained mysteries that no philosopher, physician, or priest could fully explain. One of those mysteries lived silently inside the human mind. Before we begin, settle into a comfortable position. Let your shoulders relax. Allow the pace of the day to fade into the background. This is not a race through history. It is a slow walk through another world, one gentle step at a time. As always, if you enjoy peaceful history documentaries like this one, consider subscribing so you won't miss future journeys through the forgotten corners of the ancient world. Now, imagine the first light of dawn spreading across the hills surrounding Athens. Morning sky glows with soft shades of gold and pale blue. A cool breeze carries the scent of wild herbs, olive trees, and the nearby sea. Small birds begin their songs long before the busy sounds of the city awaken. Stone houses stand quietly along narrow streets. Wooden doors slowly open. Merchants prepare baskets filled with figs, olives, grapes, and fresh bread. Potters arrange their newly fired clay jars outside their workshops. Fishermen return from the sea with their early catch, hoping today's market will be generous. Life moves at a patient rhythm. No engines, no electric lights, no ringing phones. Only footsteps echoing across worn stone roads. Donkey pulls a small wooden cart through the marketplace. Children laugh while chasing one another between columns. Somewhere nearby, a blacksmith strikes glowing iron with steady precision. And beneath the shade of a large olive tree, an elderly philosopher is already speaking to a small group of listeners who seem both fascinated and slightly confused. This was ordinary life in ancient Greece, at least, for most people. Now imagine another person, a young craftsman. Perhaps he once loved carving marble statues. Every morning he greeted neighbors with a smile. He laughed easily. He enjoyed long conversations after work while sharing bread, cheese, and watered wine beneath the evening sky. But something has changed. Nothing terrible has happened. No war has reached his village. His family remains healthy. His home still stands. The harvest has been good. Yet each morning feels strangely heavy. The tools he once admired now remain untouched. The unfinished statue sits quietly in the corner of his workshop, collecting a thin layer of dust. His friends invite him to the marketplace. He politely declines. His mother prepares his favorite meal. He barely notices the taste. Music fills the streets during a local festival. Instead of joining the celebration, he closes the shutters and sits alone inside his small stone house. The people around him begin asking questions. Are you ill? No. Did someone offend you? No. Have the gods become angry? I don't know. His answers grow shorter each day. His neighbors whisper among themselves. Some believe he simply needs more rest. Others suggest harder work. One elderly woman insists he should spend more time in the sunshine. A traveling healer recommends herbal mixtures. A local priest encourages extra offerings at the temple. Everyone has an explanation. No one truly understands. Today, many people would recognize these experiences as symptoms that can appear in depression. But for the ancient Greeks, the picture looked very different. They did not separate the mind from the body in the way modern medicine often does. If emotions changed, perhaps the stomach had become unhealthy. Perhaps the heart carried an unseen burden. Perhaps invisible forces inside the body had lost their natural balance. Or perhaps the gods themselves were trying to send a message. No single answer satisfied everyone. Ancient Greece was home to some of history's greatest thinkers. These were people who carefully observed nature. They measured shadows to estimate the size of the earth. They developed geometry. They studied astronomy. They debated ethics for hours beneath shaded courtyards. Yet when an ordinary person slowly lost the desire to enjoy life without any obvious reason, even the wisest minds found themselves searching for answers. Some looked toward medicine. Some turned toward philosophy. Others trusted religion. Each believed they held part of the truth. Perhaps none possessed the entire picture. It is easy for us, living thousands of years later, to imagine that ancient people understood very little. But history rarely fits into such simple ideas. The Greeks observed human behavior with remarkable care. They noticed patterns. They recorded unusual illnesses. They searched for logical explanations instead of accepting every mystery as magic. Their conclusions were not always correct, but their curiosity changed the world forever. In many ways, this search for understanding became the beginning of something extraordinary. Not because they discovered depression. They didn't. But because they dared to ask an important question. Why can a healthy-looking person quietly lose the joy of living? That question still challenges scientists today. Modern medicine has learned far more than the ancient Greeks ever imagined. We understand neurons, brain chemistry, genetics, hormones, and psychology. Yet even now, depression cannot always be explained by one simple cause. Perhaps that is what makes this journey through history so fascinating. Across more than 2,000 years, human beings have continued asking many of the same questions. Why do our emotions change? Why do some days feel bright while others become unexpectedly dark? Can wisdom heal suffering? Can friendship ease invisible pain? Can hope return after it quietly disappears? The ancient Greeks searched for these answers beneath marble temples, beside quiet olive groves, and inside lively philosophical schools. Tonight, we begin that journey with them. Take one last slow breath. The morning sun now rises higher above Athens. The marketplace grows louder. Philosophers prepare another day of debate. Physicians organize their herbs and instruments. Priests open the temple doors. And somewhere among thousands of ordinary people, one quiet individual wonders why life no longer feels the way it once did. No one, not even the greatest minds of Greece, yet knows where that question will lead. But we are about to find out. The sun has now climbed above the rooftops of Athens. The morning marketplace is alive with quiet activity. Merchants carefully arrange baskets of olives, figs, fresh herbs, and pottery. Fishermen negotiate prices while children weave between the crowds, laughing without a care in the world. Yet our attention turns away from the busy market. Instead, we follow a narrow stone street toward a small medical workshop. There is no shining hospital here. No stethoscope hangs from the physician's neck. No laboratory waits behind heavy wooden doors. Instead, shelves carved into the stone walls hold clay jars filled with dried herbs, fragrant oils, honey, and carefully labeled roots gathered from nearby hills. The room smells of rosemary, thyme, lavender, and warm olive oil. Sunlight filters gently through a small window, illuminating a wooden table where an elderly physician prepares for another day's work. People know him simply as a healer. His patients come from nearby villages, believing he possesses knowledge passed down through generations. Some arrive with broken bones. Others suffer from fevers. Some complain of stomach pain. And occasionally, someone walks through the door carrying no visible wound at all. Their body appears healthy. Their breathing is steady. Their heartbeat feels normal. Yet something inside them feels terribly wrong. The healer listens carefully. He does not interrupt. He studies the person's face, their posture, even the way they speak. Every small detail matters. For ancient Greek physicians believed that illness often whispered before it shouted. To understand their thinking, we must leave behind everything modern medicine has taught us for a moment. Imagine that inside every human body flow four invisible rivers. Not rivers of water, but rivers of life itself. These four substances were called the four humors. According to many Greek physicians, every person's health depended upon these humors remaining in perfect balance. The first was blood. Blood represented warmth, energy, confidence, and joy. Someone with abundant healthy blood was believed to be cheerful, friendly, optimistic, and full of life. The second was phlegm. Unlike today's meaning of the word, phlegm represented calmness, patience, and peaceful thinking. People believed too much phlegm could make a person slow, sleepy, or emotionally distant. The third humor was yellow bile. It symbolized heat, ambition, courage, determination, and sometimes anger. A leader on the battlefield might possess strong yellow bile. Unfortunately, so might someone with an explosive temper. Finally came the fourth humor. Perhaps the most mysterious of all. Black bile. The Greeks called it melena chol. From these two words came the term melancholia. They believed black bile naturally existed inside the body. But if too much accumulated, something changed. The world seemed darker. Joy faded. Sleep became difficult. Food lost its flavor. Hope quietly slipped away. Today, scientists know depression is far more complex than excessive black bile. There is no dark liquid hiding somewhere inside the human body causing sadness. But remember, the Greeks were searching for explanations with the tools available to them. Without microscopes. Without brain scans. Without knowledge of neurotransmitters. They built a theory that tried to connect the body and the emotions into one complete picture. In many ways, it was an extraordinary attempt. Imagine visiting the physician after weeks of unexplained sadness. He would not immediately ask about your childhood. He would not prescribe modern medicine. Instead, he might examine your skin. Observe your eyes. Feel your pulse. Ask what foods you had been eating. Whether you slept well. Whether you exercised. Whether your digestion seemed normal. Every answer offered another clue. Perhaps your body had become too cold. Perhaps too dry. Perhaps too moist. Perhaps too warm. To ancient medicine, health was balance. Illness was imbalance. Simple. Elegant. Not always correct. But surprisingly logical for its time. The physician reaches toward one of the clay jars. Inside rests a mixture of herbs gathered before sunrise. Another contains honey infused with wild flowers. Nearby sits fragrant olive oil mixed with crushed lavender. He believes these natural remedies may help restore harmony. Some treatments likely offer genuine comfort. Warm baths. Healthy meals. Gentle exercise. Fresh air. Quiet conversation. Good sleep. Others were far less pleasant. Certain physicians recommended bloodletting. Others prescribed powerful purging medicines intended to remove excess humors from the body. Patients often accepted these treatments because they trusted the physician's understanding of nature. Whether the treatments truly worked was another question entirely. Yet one remarkable quality separated many Greek physicians from countless healers before them. They carefully observed. They compared. They recorded. Instead of assuming every illness came from angry gods or evil spirits, many searched for natural explanations. This simple shift changed medicine forever. It encouraged curiosity. Questions. Evidence. Careful observation. Even when the answers proved incomplete. Far outside the workshop, the city continues its busy rhythm. Stone masons shape marble columns. Teachers instruct eager students. Ships arrive from distant islands carrying grain, wine, and exotic spices. Life appears perfectly ordinary. But hidden among thousands of smiling faces, someone still struggles with an invisible weight no physician can fully explain. Their family hopes another herbal remedy might finally help. The healer wonders whether black bile has grown too powerful. The philosophers blame troubled thoughts. The priests quietly prepare offerings to the gods. Everyone searches. No one yet possesses the complete answer. Still, the search itself continues. And perhaps that endless curiosity is one of ancient Greece's greatest gifts to history. Because every important discovery begins with someone willing to admit, "I do not yet understand." As the afternoon sun slowly warms the white marble buildings of Athens, the physician closes his notebook and looks toward the hills beyond the city. Tomorrow, another patient will arrive. Another mystery will sit quietly across the wooden table. Another conversation will begin. And with every question asked, humanity moves one small step closer to understanding itself. The afternoon sun hangs high above the hills of Greece. Warm light washes across white marble temples, dusty roads, and peaceful olive groves stretching toward the horizon. A gentle breeze carries the scent of wild thyme and lavender through the countryside. Far from the noisy marketplace of Athens lies a small island called Kos. It is here, according to ancient tradition, that one of history's most influential physicians was born around 460 BC. His name was Hippocrates. Today, he is often remembered as the father of medicine. Not because he discovered every illness. Not because every theory he proposed was correct. But because he dared to ask a revolutionary question. What if disease has natural causes? At first, this idea may sound obvious. To us, living in the 21st century, it almost seems impossible to imagine thinking otherwise. But for many people living in ancient Greece, illness could be explained in very different ways. A fever might be seen as punishment from the gods. A mysterious sickness could be blamed on angry spirits. An unexplained sadness might be interpreted as a curse placed upon a family. When answers were difficult to find, the supernatural often filled the empty spaces. Hippocrates respected the religious traditions of his culture. Yet he believed that physicians should search for explanations inside nature itself. He encouraged careful observation instead of quick assumptions. Imagine arriving at Hippocrates' small medical school. The building is simple. Stone walls. Wooden benches. Clay jars filled with herbs line the shelves. Young students gather quietly around their teacher. There are no expensive medical machines. No flashing computer screens. Only notebooks made from papyrus. Careful eyes. Curious minds. Hippocrates begins today's lesson. He does not immediately speak about treatments. Instead, he asks his students to observe. Look carefully. How does the patient walk? Do they speak quickly or slowly? Does their skin appear pale? Do they eat with appetite? Do they sleep peacefully? Every detail matters. To Hippocrates, medicine begins with paying attention. One afternoon, a middle-aged farmer arrives seeking help. His wife explains that he no longer smiles. He rarely leaves his home. His fields remain neglected. He speaks little. He eats less each week. Nothing terrible has happened. No family member has died. No war has reached their village. Yet the joy has quietly disappeared from his life. The students exchange uncertain glances. One wonders if the gods have become angry. Another quietly suggests an evil spirit. Hippocrates listens patiently. Then he gently shakes his head. Perhaps, he says, we should first understand the body before blaming the heavens. It is a remarkable moment. Not because Hippocrates already knows the answer. He does not. But because he refuses to stop asking questions. He examines the farmer carefully. He checks his pulse. Studies his breathing. Looks into his eyes. Feels the warmth of his skin. Asks about his meals. His sleep. His work. His daily routine. Everything becomes evidence. Everything tells part of the story. Although Hippocrates believed in the theory of the four humors, he also understood something surprisingly modern. Lifestyle matters. Fresh air. Clean water. Nutritious food. Regular movement. Peaceful sleep. Moderation in all things. These ideas appear again and again throughout the writings connected with his medical school. Some of his recommendations still sound familiar today. Others belong entirely to the ancient world. He might recommend long walks beneath olive trees, warm herbal baths, gentle physical exercise, simple meals of bread, olives, vegetables, and fish, avoiding excessive wine, spending time outdoors beneath the morning sun. None of these could cure every illness. But Hippocrates believed the body often possessed its own remarkable ability to heal, if given the proper conditions. This belief became one of the foundations of Western medicine. As the years passed, stories about Hippocrates spread throughout Greece. People traveled great distances seeking his advice. Students copied his teachings onto scrolls. Generations of physicians studied his methods. One idea became especially famous. First, do no harm. Interestingly, those exact words do not appear in the original Hippocratic Oath. Yet they beautifully capture its spirit. A physician should help whenever possible. But above all, avoid making suffering worse. It sounds simple. Yet it changed medicine forever. Back in our quiet village, the struggling farmer slowly begins following Hippocrates' advice. Each morning he walks through the olive groves. He spends time speaking with friends instead of isolating himself. His family prepares nourishing meals. He rests more regularly. Some days feel slightly easier. Other days remain difficult. Recovery is slow, uncertain, incomplete. Hippocrates would never claim that every patient could be healed. Some illnesses remained mysteries. Some people recovered. Others did not. He accepted uncertainty as part of medicine. Perhaps that honesty was one of his greatest strengths. As evening approaches, golden sunlight stretches across the island of Kos. The physician closes his scrolls. His students gather their notes. Another day of learning comes to an end. Tomorrow, new patients will arrive. New mysteries will appear. New questions will demand answers. Hippocrates cannot solve every puzzle hidden within the human mind. No one in ancient Greece can. But by replacing fear with observation, superstition with curiosity, and assumptions with careful study, he lights a small candle whose flame will continue burning for more than 2,000 years. Long after the temples crumble. Long after empires rise and fall. The simple habit of asking, "What can we observe?" will remain one of humanity's greatest tools for understanding both the body and the mind. The morning sun rises gently over the mountains of ancient Greece. Golden light slowly reaches the stone roads, quiet villages, and endless olive groves that blanket the countryside. Birds begin their cheerful songs while a cool breeze carries the fresh scent of pine trees and wild herbs across the valleys. Today, we are leaving the busy city behind. Instead, we travel toward one of the most peaceful places in the ancient world. A place where sick people arrived carrying hope. A place where physicians, priests, and pilgrims quietly worked together. A place dedicated to the Greek god of healing, Asclepius. Long before modern hospitals filled with bright lights and advanced technology, people journeyed for days, sometimes even weeks, to reach these sacred healing sanctuaries. Perhaps you are one of those travelers. Your sandals have gathered dust from many miles of walking. A small leather bag hangs over your shoulder. Inside are a few pieces of bread, dried figs, and a small clay cup. More importantly, you carry questions no one back home could answer. You haven't been yourself for months, you sleep poorly, you feel tired before the day even begins, nothing seems enjoyable anymore. Your family cannot understand why, neither can you. As the temple comes into view, it feels surprisingly peaceful. There are no crowded streets, no shouting merchants, only tall cypress trees gently moving in the morning breeze. White marble buildings shine beneath the sunlight, small fountains provide fresh spring water, birdsong fills the quiet air. It hardly resembles what we might imagine as a hospital. Instead, it feels more like a peaceful garden, and perhaps that was part of the treatment. The ancient Greeks believed beautiful surroundings could help restore harmony within the body, fresh air, clean water, quiet places. Nature itself became part of healing. As you approach the entrance, a priest welcomes you warmly. He asks simple questions: where have you traveled from? How long have you felt unwell? Have you suffered any injuries? Do you sleep peacefully? No one rushes the conversation. Time seems slower here. The priests of Asclepius were not only religious figures, many also possessed practical medical knowledge passed down through generations. Some understood herbs, others treated wounds, some specialized in broken bones. Many carefully observed their patients before suggesting any treatment. This combination of faith and medicine made these temples unlike almost anywhere else in the ancient world. One of the most fascinating rituals practiced here was known as incubation. After washing in clean spring water and offering a simple prayer, patients entered a quiet sleeping chamber. The room was dimly lit, soft blankets covered stone beds, the air smelled faintly of olive oil and incense. Here, people were encouraged to sleep, not ordinary sleep, sacred sleep. They believed Asclepius might appear in dreams. Perhaps the god would offer advice, perhaps reveal the cause of illness, or perhaps show a symbolic image that priests would later interpret. To modern ears, this may sound unusual, yet dreams have fascinated humanity for thousands of years. Even today, scientists continue studying how sleep affects memory, emotion, and healing. The ancient Greeks simply understood these mysteries through a different lens. As night falls over the sanctuary, silence settles across the temple grounds. Oil lamps flicker softly. Stars fill the clear Mediterranean sky. Some patients sleep peacefully for the first time in many weeks. Others dream of snakes. Interestingly, the snake became one of Asclepius' most famous symbols. Not because it represented danger, but because snakes shed their skin. To the Greeks, this symbolized renewal, healing, new beginnings. Even today, a serpent wrapped around a staff remains one of the world's most recognized symbols of medicine. Morning arrives. Patients slowly gather outside beneath the warm sunlight. Priests listen carefully as each person describes their dreams. One dreamed of drinking clear water from a mountain spring. Another saw a great oak tree growing stronger after a storm. Someone else dreamed only of walking peacefully beside the sea. The priests searched these dreams for meaning. Sometimes they recommended herbal remedies. Sometimes dietary changes. Sometimes exercise. Sometimes simply more rest. Were these dreams truly messages from a healing God? History cannot answer that question. But something else may have been happening. Imagine spending several peaceful days surrounded by gardens, away from stressful responsibilities, eating healthy food, sleeping regularly, speaking openly about your worries, walking quietly through nature. Whether or not divine intervention occurred, many people probably felt better simply because they were finally able to rest. Modern psychology recognizes something surprisingly similar. A calm environment, supportive conversations, healthy routines, good sleep. These factors can all contribute to emotional well-being. The Greeks may not have understood brain chemistry, but they understood something equally important. Human beings need hope. As the afternoon sun warms the marble columns, you notice something remarkable. People smile here. Not because every illness disappears. Not because every prayer is answered. But because they no longer feel completely alone. Healing, they discover, is not always about removing pain. Sometimes it begins with being understood. A gentle conversation. A kind face. Someone willing to listen without judgment. Those simple gifts have always been powerful medicine. As your visit comes to an end, you leave the sanctuary carrying no miracle cure. Yet somehow, your steps feel a little lighter. The questions remain. But so does hope. And perhaps hope itself was one of the greatest medicines the temples of Asclepius ever offered. The white marble buildings slowly disappear behind the olive trees as you continue your journey across ancient Greece. Ahead lies another mystery. If physicians searched the body, and priests searched the gods, then philosophers searched something even deeper. The human soul. The afternoon sun hangs gently over the city of Athens. The busy marketplace hums with quiet conversation. Merchants arrange baskets of fresh olives, figs, and fragrant herbs. Potters shape clay with practiced hands, while children laugh as they weave through the narrow streets. But today, we are not following the merchants. Instead, we notice a small crowd gathered beneath the shade of an ancient olive tree. At the center stands an unusual man. He wears no expensive robes. No golden jewelry. No royal crown. His sandals are dusty. His cloak is plain. His face is weathered by years beneath the Mediterranean sun. Yet people stop whatever they are doing just to hear him speak. His name is Socrates. Unlike many famous teachers, Socrates claimed that he knew almost nothing. This puzzled nearly everyone. How could one of Athens' wisest men insist he possessed so little knowledge? Perhaps that was exactly what made him different. He believed wisdom did not begin with having all the answers. It began with asking better questions. Imagine walking toward him. He notices your quiet expression and welcomes you with a warm smile. Good morning, my friend. You seem troubled. You hesitate. How do you explain something you barely understand yourself? My life is comfortable, you finally reply. My family is healthy. My work continues. And yet, you pause. I no longer feel happy. Most people might immediately offer advice. Socrates does something else. He asks another question. What do you believe happiness is? You blink. It is not the answer you expected. I'm not sure. He nods gently, then perhaps we should begin there. For the next hour, the conversation continues, not as a lecture, not as a sermon, but as a quiet exchange of questions. Each answer leads to another question, each question uncovers another layer of thought. This method would later become famous as the Socratic method, rather than telling people what to think. Socrates encouraged them to discover their own understanding. Many Athenians found this exciting. Others found it deeply frustrating. Some even joked that speaking with Socrates felt like trying to untangle a fishing net while someone kept tying new knots. Still, people returned. Again and again. Because beneath all those questions was a simple belief. A healthy life required a healthy mind. As the afternoon breeze moves gently through the olive branches, Socrates continues speaking. Many people spend their lives caring for their homes. They polish their armor. They count their money. They train their bodies. But how many spend equal time caring for their soul? The word soul carried a broader meaning in ancient Greece than it often does today. It represented the deepest part of a person's character. Their reason. Their values. Their ability to choose wisely. If the soul became neglected, perhaps life itself became unbalanced. Socrates did not believe sadness automatically meant weakness. Nor did he assume every emotional struggle came from angry gods. Instead, he wondered whether confusion, false beliefs, fear, or misplaced priorities could quietly disturb inner peace. Of course, he did not understand depression as modern medicine describes it. No one in ancient Greece did. Yet his conversations introduced something surprisingly familiar. The healing power of honest reflection. Today, psychologists often help people examine their thoughts, beliefs, and emotions through careful conversation. The methods are very different. The science is far more advanced. But the basic idea, that talking openly can help us better understand ourselves, has ancient roots. As the conversation continues, Socrates asks another unexpected question. What do you fear most? You think carefully. Failing. Losing respect. Disappointing my family. He smiles kindly. And if those things happened, would you become less worthy as a human being? Silence. You have never considered the question before. Many people surrounding you also fall quiet. Some stare thoughtfully at the dusty ground. Others quietly fold their arms. No one seems eager to answer. Perhaps that was Socrates' greatest gift. He transformed ordinary conversations into journeys of discovery. Sometimes those journeys were uncomfortable. Sometimes they were inspiring. Often, they were both. As evening approaches, golden sunlight stretches across the marble buildings of Athens. The crowd slowly begins to disperse. Some leave smiling. Others leave puzzled. A few leave slightly annoyed. Socrates himself seems perfectly content with every outcome. He never expected everyone to agree with him. He only hoped they would continue asking questions. Years later, those questions would ultimately lead to tragedy. Many powerful citizens grew tired of his endless debates. They accused him of corrupting the youth of Athens. He was brought before a court. Despite opportunities to escape punishment, Socrates accepted the city's judgment. He calmly drank a cup containing poisonous hemlock. His students watched in silence. One of them, a young philosopher named Plato, would later preserve many of his teacher's conversations. Because of Plato's writings, the voice of Socrates still echoes across more than 2,000 years. As darkness slowly settles over Athens, oil lamps begin glowing inside nearby homes. Families gather for simple evening meals. The marketplace grows quiet. A cool breeze carries the scent of olive wood fires through the streets. You leave the city with no magical cure. No secret medicine. No perfect explanation for human sadness. But you carry something else. A question. Perhaps the same question Socrates hoped every person would ask themselves. How well do I truly know my own mind? For sometimes, the longest journey a person ever takes is not across mountains or seas, but inward. And in our next chapter, another remarkable thinker will continue that journey. His name is Plato, and he will imagine the human soul as something far greater than anyone before him had ever described. The evening sun slowly disappears behind the hills of Athens. Long shadows stretch across the marble streets, while merchants close their wooden stalls one by one. The sounds of the marketplace begin to fade, replaced by the quiet chirping of crickets and the gentle rustle of olive trees in the evening breeze. Tonight, our journey continues. We leave behind the busy agora and walk toward a peaceful garden just outside the city walls. Here stands one of the most remarkable schools of the ancient world. Its name is the Academy. Founded around 387 BC, it is not filled with grand buildings or towering libraries. Instead, students gather beneath tall olive trees, sitting on simple stone benches as they listen carefully to their teacher. That teacher is Plato. He was once the devoted student of Socrates. After witnessing the death of his beloved teacher, Plato dedicated his life to preserving wisdom and searching for deeper truths about the human soul. Unlike many philosophers, Plato believed that the world we see with our eyes is only part of reality. There is something deeper, something hidden. Something our senses cannot fully understand. Imagine yourself walking through the academy. Young students quietly debate mathematics. Others discuss justice, courage, beauty, and the meaning of happiness. No one seems to be in a hurry. Learning here is slow, careful, thoughtful. Plato believes true wisdom grows like an olive tree, not overnight, but little by little, season after season. One afternoon, Plato gathers his students beneath a large fig tree. Without warning, he begins telling them a strange story, not a story about kings, not about great battles, not about powerful gods. Instead, he speaks of a cave. Imagine that from the day you were born, you lived inside a dark cave, your hands and feet are gently chained, you cannot turn around, you can only look straight ahead, behind you burns a fire, between the fire and the prisoners, people walk carrying statues, tools, animals, and everyday objects. These objects cast moving shadows onto the cave wall. Because the prisoners have never seen anything else, they believe those shadows are reality itself, they give the shadows names, they argue about them. They build their entire understanding of the world upon those moving shapes. Now imagine, one prisoner is finally set free. At first, standing up is painful, his eyes struggle to adjust, every step feels uncertain. Eventually, he reaches the mouth of the cave, bright sunlight floods his vision. For the first time, he sees trees, mountains, birds, flowing rivers, the endless blue sky. That he realizes, everything he once believed was only a shadow of something much greater. Plato pauses. His students remain silent. The cave, he explains, is not merely a place. It is a symbol, the chains represent ignorance, the shadows represent incomplete understanding, the sunlight represents truth. For Plato, learning was not simply collecting facts. It was waking up, looking beyond appearances, seeing reality more clearly. Now imagine someone struggling with deep sadness, life feels dark, hope seems distant, everything appears heavy. Although Plato never described clinical depression as we understand it today, he believed the human soul could become confused by false ideas, unhealthy desires, and mistaken beliefs. That he asked an important question. What if suffering is not only about what happens around us, but also about how we understand ourselves? Today, psychologists know depression is a complex medical condition involving biology, environment, and many other factors. That it cannot be explained simply by thinking differently. Yet Plato's idea, that our perception shapes our experience, continues to influence philosophy and psychology even now. Back in the academy, Plato walks slowly through the garden. He picks up a small acorn from the ground, holding it in his hand, he smiles. This tiny seed, he says, already contains the possibility of becoming a mighty oak. The students examine the tiny acorn with curiosity. It does not look like a tree. It does not feel like a tree. But its true nature is far greater than what your eyes can presently see. Plato believed people were much the same. Inside every person existed the potential for wisdom, kindness, courage, and balance. Sometimes those qualities remained hidden beneath fear, confusion, or suffering. His task as a teacher was not to place wisdom into someone's mind. It was to help uncover what already existed within. As evening deepens, oil lamps begin glowing throughout the academy. Students quietly copy Plato's lessons onto papyrus scrolls. Some continue discussing the cave long after the lecture ends. Others sit alone beneath the stars, wondering which shadows still exist inside their own minds. Perhaps Plato's greatest lesson was not about caves at all. It was about humility. The willingness to admit that we may not yet see the whole picture. Thousands of years later, humanity still searches for answers about the mind. Scientists study the brain with powerful machines. Doctors develop new treatments. Psychologists explore emotion and behavior. Yet even today, there is much we continue to learn. In that sense, we are not so different from Plato's students. We, too, are travelers. Always searching, always asking. Always hoping to understand ourselves a little more clearly than we did yesterday. The cool night air settles over Athens. The stars brighten one by one above the ancient hills. The academy grows quiet. Tomorrow, another philosopher will continue the conversation. His name is Aristotle. Unlike Plato, he believed the best way to understand the world was not by escaping it, but by observing it carefully. And that simple idea would change science forever. The first light of morning slowly spreads across the hills surrounding Athens. A gentle mist rests over the olive groves, while small birds begin greeting the new day with cheerful songs. Farmers quietly lead their donkeys toward the fields, fishermen prepare their boats along the shoreline, and the city slowly awakens beneath a sky painted in soft shades of gold. Our journey now brings us to another extraordinary thinker. A man who spent nearly 20 years studying under Plato, yet eventually he began to see the world differently. His name was Aristotle. If Plato looked toward ideals beyond the physical world, Aristotle preferred to begin with something much simpler. He looked at the world itself. He believed that before forming great theories, a person should first observe carefully, watch the birds, study the trees, examine the stars, listen to people, notice patterns, ask questions, and only then attempt to understand. Imagine arriving at Aristotle's school, known as the Lyceum. Unlike many schools today, lessons often take place while walking. Teachers and students stroll beneath long shaded pathways lined with trees. As they walk, they discuss everything imaginable: animals, plants, politics, friendship, ethics, mathematics, even happiness itself. Aristotle believes learning is not something that happens only while sitting still. The mind, he says, often thinks more clearly while the body is moving. As you join the group, Aristotle notices your thoughtful expression. You seem quiet today, he says with a gentle smile. I've been wondering, you reply. Why do some people seem content while others struggle, even when their lives appear similar? Aristotle nods. A question worth asking. He bends down and picks up a small olive branch that has fallen onto the path. Holding it in his hand, he asks, what is the purpose of this tree? Someone answers, to grow. Another says, to produce olives. Another quietly adds, to live. Aristotle smiles. Exactly. Everything in nature has its own purpose. The eye exists to see. The ear exists to hear. So, what is the purpose of a human life? The students fall silent. It is not an easy question. Finally, Aristotle answers it himself. The purpose of human life is not simply to survive. It is to flourish. He used the Greek word eudaimonia. There is no perfect English translation. Some call it happiness. Others describe it as flourishing. Living well. Thriving. Becoming the best version of oneself. But Aristotle's idea was far deeper than simple pleasure. Eating delicious food might make you happy for an hour. Winning a race might bring joy for a day. Receiving praise might feel wonderful for a week. Yet none of these, he argued, could create a truly fulfilled life on their own. Real happiness came from living with wisdom, kindness, courage, honesty, friendship, and moderation. Especially moderation. Aristotle believed that nearly every virtue existed between two unhealthy extremes. Too little courage became cowardice. Too much courage became recklessness. Too little confidence became insecurity. Too much confidence became arrogance. Finding balance. That was the challenge. He called this the golden mean. Imagine a skilled musician tuning a lyre. If one string is pulled too tightly, it snaps. If another hangs too loosely, it produces no beautiful sound. Only when every string finds the right balance does music emerge. Aristotle believed human life worked much the same way. A balanced life created harmony. Not perfection. Harmony. Of course. Life rarely remains balanced forever. Storms arrive. Harvests fail. Friends move away. Illness appears without warning. Loss visits every family eventually. Aristotle understood this. He never promised a life without suffering. Instead, he believed good habits could help people remain steady even during difficult seasons. He spoke often about habits. We become what we repeatedly do. A child who practices kindness every day slowly becomes kind. A person who constantly chooses honesty becomes trustworthy. Virtue, Aristotle explained, grows through practice. Not through wishes alone. As the lesson continues, one student raises an interesting question. What about sadness? Can a wise person still become deeply unhappy? Aristotle pauses before answering. Yes. Because wisdom does not remove pain. It teaches us how to live alongside it. It is a remarkably compassionate thought. Even today, psychologists recognize that emotional well-being does not mean feeling joyful every moment. Human life naturally includes disappointment, grief, fear, and uncertainty. The goal is not to erase every difficult emotion. It is to develop the strength and support needed to move through them. As afternoon sunlight filters through the trees, Aristotle leads his students toward a nearby garden. There they begin examining birds, insects, flowers, and leaves. To many people, these tiny observations seem ordinary. To Aristotle, they are the beginning of science. He fills notebooks with descriptions of animals. He compares different species. He studies their habits. He asks endless questions. His curiosity seems limitless. This careful way of observing nature will inspire scientists for centuries. Though many of his conclusions are later corrected, his method of learning, looking closely before reaching conclusions, becomes one of his greatest legacies. As evening approaches, the students gather for one final discussion. Aristotle looks across the quiet garden and says, "Every day gives us another opportunity to practice living well. Not perfectly, but wisely." The warm breeze carries the scent of olive trees through the Lyceum. The sun slowly sinks toward the western hills. Students roll up their papyrus scrolls and begin walking home. Some continue debating philosophy. Others simply enjoy the peaceful silence. You remain for a moment beneath the ancient trees, looking up into the golden evening sky, thinking. Perhaps happiness is not a treasure waiting to be discovered. Perhaps, like tending an olive tree, it is something gently cultivated. One day, one habit, one thoughtful choice, at a time. As darkness quietly settles over ancient Greece, another chapter of our journey comes to an end. But our story is far from over. In the next chapter, we will leave the schools of philosophers behind and explore something surprisingly powerful in the ancient world. How music, poetry, and theater became medicine for the human heart. The golden light of evening slowly fades beyond the hills of ancient Greece. The day's work is nearly finished. Farmers return from their olive groves. Fishing boats drift gently back toward the harbor. The marketplace grows quieter as merchants carefully close their wooden stalls. A cool Mediterranean breeze carries the scent of the sea through the narrow stone streets. Yet tonight, the city is not preparing for sleep. It is preparing for something very different. Entertainment. Celebration. And perhaps, healing. Our journey now leads us toward one of the largest buildings in Athens. Unlike a temple or a marketplace, this place is built into the side of a hill. Thousands of stone seats rise in graceful rows. At the very bottom stands a circular stage. This is the theater of Dionysus. Long before cinemas, television, or streaming services, this was where stories came alive. Imagine taking your seat among thousands of Athenians. Families sit together. Children whisper excitedly. Elderly citizens lean comfortably against smooth stone benches. Merchants, soldiers, farmers, philosophers. Everyone gathers beneath the open sky. There is no roof. Only the stars beginning to appear overhead. As darkness slowly settles, musicians enter the stage. A gentle melody rises into the evening air. The sound comes from an ancient instrument called the lyre. Its soft strings produce warm, peaceful notes that drift across the silent audience. Soon, another musician joins with a wooden flute known as the aulos. Together, the instruments create music unlike anything heard in the busy marketplace. Calm, gentle, almost dreamlike. The Greeks believed music possessed extraordinary power. Not merely for entertainment, but for shaping the emotions. A joyful melody could lift tired spirits. A peaceful rhythm could calm anxious thoughts. A solemn song could help people express grief they had been quietly carrying. Today, scientists continue studying how music affects the human brain. They have discovered that music can influence mood, memory, attention, and even certain stress hormones. The ancient Greeks knew none of this biology. Yet through simple observation, they realized music could change the way people felt. As the performance begins, actors wearing beautifully painted masks step onto the stage. Each mask represents a different emotion. Joy, sorrow, fear, hope, anger, wonder. The audience immediately understands each character before a single word is spoken. One actor portrays a proud king. Another, a grieving mother. A third plays a weary traveler searching for home after many years at sea. These stories are not simply tales of heroes. They are stories about being human. About making mistakes. About love. Loss. Courage. Regret. Forgiveness. As you watch the performance, something unexpected happens. You recognize yourself in the characters. Perhaps not literally, but emotionally. Their fears resemble your fears. Their hopes resemble your own. Their struggles feel strangely familiar. Aristotle later described this experience with a remarkable word: catharsis. He believed tragedy allowed people to experience powerful emotions safely. By witnessing sorrow on stage, people could release some of their own hidden emotions. Rather than carrying grief alone, they shared it with thousands of others. Modern psychology sometimes recognizes something similar. Stories help people understand themselves. Books, films, poetry, music. Each allows us to explore emotions that may otherwise remain difficult to express. The Greeks discovered this long before anyone understood neuroscience. The play continues. The chorus begins singing together. Their voices rise and fall in perfect harmony. The rhythm is slow, steady, almost hypnotic. For a few peaceful moments, the worries of everyday life fade into the background. No one thinks about unpaid debts, failed harvests, political arguments, or tomorrow's work. Everyone simply listens. Nearby, an elderly father quietly smiles. Beside him, a young child watches with wide eyes. A soldier recently returned from war closes his eyes as the music fills the theater. Even philosophers stop debating. For once, no one argues. No one interrupts. Thousands of strangers become one quiet audience sharing the same story. Perhaps this feeling of connection was itself a kind of medicine. The Greeks placed enormous value on community. Festivals brought entire cities together. Neighbors who rarely spoke shared laughter. Families spent time together. Friends reunited after long journeys. In these moments, people remembered they were not alone. Loneliness has always existed, even in ancient times. But gathering together around music and stories reminded people of something deeply comforting. Every human being experiences joy. Every human being experiences sadness. Every human life contains seasons of celebration and seasons of struggle. As midnight approaches, the final scene ends. The actors bow. The musicians play one last gentle melody. For a few seconds, the entire theater remains silent. Then applause echoes across the hillside. Not loud. Not frantic. Just thousands of grateful hands coming together beneath the stars. People slowly begin walking home through the quiet streets of Athens. Some discuss the play. Others remain silent, still reflecting on what they have seen. Perhaps someone leaves feeling a little lighter than when they arrived. Perhaps another finally finds words for emotions they could never quite explain. The theater offered no miracle cures. It could not erase illness. It could not remove every sorrow. But it gave people something equally valuable. A place to feel. A place to reflect. A place to remember that even the greatest heroes faced fear, grief, and uncertainty. As you walk through the peaceful streets, the moon shines softly above the marble temples. The sounds of the city slowly disappear. Only distant waves gently meet the shore. And somewhere, from an open window, you hear the quiet notes of a lyre playing one final lullaby before sleep. Tomorrow, our journey continues. We will discover how the ancient Greeks believed food, exercise, sleep, and daily routines could shape both the body and the mind, and why many of their simple habits still inspire healthy living today. The first rays of sunlight slowly rise above the Aegean Sea. A thin layer of morning mist drifts across the olive groves surrounding a small Greek village. Dew sparkles on blades of grass like tiny crystals, while distant sheep quietly graze beneath ancient fig trees. The world awakens gently. There are no alarm clocks. No rushing traffic. No endless stream of messages demanding immediate attention. Only the soft crow of a rooster. The distant ringing of goat bells. And the peaceful rhythm of another ordinary day. Today, our journey leaves behind the philosophers and great temples. Instead, we step inside the everyday life of an ordinary Greek family. History often remembers kings, generals, and famous thinkers. But most people living in ancient Greece were none of those things. They were farmers, potters, weavers, fishermen, blacksmiths, mothers, children, neighbors. Their lives were simple, yet surprisingly well organized. Imagine entering a small whitewashed home just before sunrise. The family is already awake. A clay oil lamp flickers softly in the corner. Fresh bread has just been removed from a small stone oven. Olives rest in a wooden bowl beside goat cheese and ripe figs gathered the previous afternoon. Breakfast is modest. There are no towering stacks of pancakes. No sugary pastries. No colorful boxes of cereal. Instead, simple foods fill the table. Fresh fruit. Whole grains. Honey. Cheese. Nuts. Olive oil. Sometimes fish. Sometimes vegetables gathered from nearby gardens. Meat appears only on special occasions or festivals. To the ancient Greeks, food was more than pleasure. It was balance. Physicians following the teachings of Hippocrates believed every meal affected the harmony of the body. Eating too much could create illness. Eating too little could weaken both body and spirit. Moderation remained the guiding principle. After breakfast, the village slowly comes alive. Farmers walk toward endless rows of olive trees. Fishermen push wooden boats into calm morning waters. Children accompany their parents, learning skills not from books, but through daily life. Everyone moves. Almost constantly. Exercise was rarely something scheduled. It was simply part of living. Walking long distances. Carrying water. Working fields. Building homes. Climbing hills. Physical movement naturally filled each day. Even philosophers often taught while walking beneath shaded colonnades. Aristotle himself became famous for strolling alongside his students during discussions. The Greeks understood something that modern science continues to confirm. The body and mind influence one another. Although they lacked knowledge of muscles, hormones, and neurotransmitters, They noticed an important pattern. People who remained active often appeared healthier. Not only physically, but emotionally as well. As the sun climbs higher, work pauses for a short rest. Workers gather beneath olive trees where cool shade offers relief from the Mediterranean heat. Fresh water is shared. Simple conversations begin. Friends laugh together. Children play nearby. Nobody seems embarrassed to pause. Rest itself forms part of the day's rhythm. Unlike many modern societies, where busyness is often worn like a badge of honor, ancient life naturally included moments of stillness. Not because people were lazy. Because the climate demanded it. Working beneath the blazing afternoon sun could quickly become dangerous. So life adjusted. Nature set the schedule. As afternoon slowly fades into evening, families return home together. There is comfort in familiar routines. Evening meals are eaten slowly. Stories are shared. Children listen as grandparents recount myths of brave heroes, clever gods, and distant adventures. These stories do more than entertain. They strengthen family bonds. Create shared memories. Pass wisdom from one generation to the next. Long before psychologists studied the importance of social connection, ancient communities already understood that people needed one another. Loneliness was never considered an ideal way to live. As darkness settles across the countryside, another important habit begins. Sleep. Without electric lights, most people naturally followed the rhythm of the sun. When darkness arrived, the body prepared for rest. Oil lamps provided only gentle illumination. Conversation became quieter. The village slowly fell silent. Today, scientists know that regular sleep plays an essential role in emotional health. Poor sleep can affect memory, concentration, mood, and stress levels. The Greeks did not understand brain chemistry. Yet they recognized that exhausted people often struggled both physically and emotionally. Many physicians recommended consistent rest as part of maintaining good health. One elderly healer even remarked that the body performs much of its healing while the patient sleeps peacefully. Without realizing it, he had come surprisingly close to modern scientific understanding. As the stars appear overhead, the village becomes wonderfully quiet. No engines disturb the night. No glowing advertisements fill the horizon. Only the gentle sound of insects. The distant hoot of an owl. And the soft whisper of wind moving through olive branches. Lying beneath a simple wool blanket, you reflect upon the day. Nothing extraordinary happened. No famous philosopher delivered a brilliant speech. No king passed through the village. No legendary battle changed history. Yet perhaps that ordinary day contained its own quiet wisdom. Simple food. Meaningful work. Fresh air. Gentle movement. Family conversations. Friendship. Rest. Balance. These habits could not cure every illness. They could not prevent every sorrow. But together, they created a way of life that sought harmony rather than excess. As the moon slowly crosses the peaceful Greek sky, one final thought lingers. Perhaps the greatest lesson ancient Greece offers is not found only in its grand temples or famous philosophers. Perhaps it is hidden inside the ordinary rhythm of everyday life. Tomorrow, our journey will take us into one of the most emotional parts of the ancient world. We will discover how friendship, family, and community shaped the human spirit. And why the Greeks believed no one was truly meant to face life's burdens alone. The soft glow of dawn slowly spreads across the rooftops of a quiet Greek village. The first birds greet the morning with cheerful songs as thin wisps of smoke begin rising from small stone cottages. Somewhere in the distance, a shepherd whistles gently while leading his flock toward the green hills beyond the village. Another peaceful day has begun. Unlike the great cities of Athens or Sparta, this small village is calm. Everyone knows one another. Children recognize every face. Neighbors greet each other by name. In ancient Greece, life was rarely lived alone. Community was not simply a pleasant idea. It was part of survival. Imagine stepping outside your home just after sunrise. An elderly woman waves from across the narrow road. A potter is already shaping clay on his wheel. Nearby, a young boy carries fresh water from the village well while two sisters gather herbs growing beside a stone wall. Nobody seems rushed. People stop to exchange a few words before beginning their work. They ask about each other's families. The harvest. The weather. A sick relative. A new baby. These simple conversations may seem ordinary. Yet they quietly strengthen the invisible threads holding the community together. Today, researchers often speak about social support, the idea that strong relationships can improve emotional well-being. The Greeks did not use that phrase. But they understood its importance. A person facing hardship was rarely expected to face it alone. If a family's crops failed after a violent storm, neighbors often shared grain. If a fisherman became injured, others helped repair his boat. If someone lost a loved one, friends gathered beside the family, offering comfort through quiet presence rather than perfect words. Sometimes, simply showing up mattered most. As morning continues, we follow a young farmer named Damon. For several weeks, he has not seemed like himself. He still works. He still greets his neighbors politely. But his smile has grown faint. He speaks less than before. His closest friend notices. Rather than ignoring the change, he walks beside Damon toward the olive fields. For several minutes. Neither man says anything. Only the gentle crunch of sandals against the dusty path breaks the silence. Finally, the friend speaks. You've been carrying something heavy. Damon stares quietly toward the distant hills. I don't even know what it is. His friend nods. You don't have to explain everything today. We can simply walk. Sometimes. The greatest kindness requires very few words. The Greeks valued philia, a deep form of friendship built on trust, loyalty, and shared respect. Unlike friendships based only on entertainment or convenience, philia was expected to endure difficult seasons. Friends celebrated together. Worked together. Grieved together. Learned together. And whenever possible, helped one another remain steady during life's storms. Aristotle even described friendship as one of the greatest treasures a person could possess. Without friends, he believed, even wealth and success could feel strangely empty. As the afternoon sun warms the countryside, families begin gathering for the day's largest meal. Bread. Olives. Fresh vegetables. Goat cheese. Perhaps grilled fish caught that morning. Children laugh while grandparents tell stories from long ago. The oldest members of the family are treated with quiet respect. Their experience is valued. Their advice requested. Their presence appreciated. The household is more than a place to sleep. It is a small community within the larger village. Parents teach children. Children care for aging parents. Everyone depends upon one another. Of course. Family life is not always peaceful. Arguments happen. Misunderstandings arise. Different generations see the world differently. The ancient Greeks understood this as well. No family was perfect. No friendship remained free from disagreement forever. What mattered most was the willingness to repair relationships whenever possible. Forgiveness was often more valuable than pride. As evening approaches, the village prepares for a small festival honoring the changing seasons. Colorful cloth banners hang between wooden posts. Musicians tune their lyres and flutes. Children decorate flower wreaths. Soon, laughter fills the village square. People dance slowly in circles. Songs passed down through generations echo beneath the evening sky. Even those who arrived feeling lonely gradually find themselves smiling. Not because every problem disappears, but because joy becomes easier to carry when shared with others. Across the square sits an elderly widow. Her husband passed away many years ago. She no longer dances. Yet every festival, neighbors invite her to join them for the evening meal. Children proudly carry food to her table. No one forgets her. No one allows her to disappear into isolation. Perhaps this simple act reveals one of ancient Greece's greatest strengths. People belong somewhere. Modern life often moves quickly. Many people live surrounded by thousands of strangers. Technology allows conversations across continents. Yet loneliness still touches millions of lives. The ancient Greeks remind us of something timeless. Human beings have always needed connection. Not constant conversation. Not endless entertainment. Simply knowing. Someone notices when we are missing. Someone asks how we are feeling. Someone is willing to walk beside us for a while. As night settles across the village, families slowly return to their homes. Oil lamps glow softly behind wooden windows. Crickets begin their evening chorus. The stars spread across the dark sky above the olive trees. Damon sits quietly outside his small house. The weight in his heart has not completely disappeared. But after spending the day surrounded by friends and family, it feels just a little lighter. Perhaps healing rarely happens all at once. Perhaps it begins with a conversation, a shared meal, a kind smile, a patient listener, a friend who chooses to stay. As the moon rises higher over ancient Greece, another peaceful day comes to an end. Tomorrow, our journey reaches one of the most fascinating questions of all. What happened when the greatest civilization of the ancient world slowly began to change, and how did Greek ideas about the mind continue shaping history for thousands of years? The night is quiet. Above the hills of ancient Greece, countless stars shine gently against the dark sky. A cool breeze moves through the olive trees, carrying with it the scent of the sea and distant pine forests. Most of the village is asleep now. Oil lamps have burned low. The marketplace stands empty. Even the dogs have curled beside warm doorways. Only the soft chirping of crickets fills the peaceful silence. Our journey has carried us through temples, schools, villages, theaters, and quiet gardens. We have walked beside physicians, listened to philosophers, watched musicians, met ordinary families trying to understand the mysteries of life. Tonight, we reach the final chapter of this long journey. But history never truly ends. Imagine standing on a hill overlooking Athens. The magnificent Parthenon glows softly beneath the moonlight. Its white marble columns appear almost silver under the stars. It seems impossible that such a powerful civilization could ever fade. Yet, every civilization changes. Years pass. Generations grow old. Children become parents. Parents become grandparents. The great philosophers slowly disappear. Socrates is gone. Plato is gone. Aristotle is gone. Their voices no longer echo through the streets of Athens. But their ideas remain. New rulers arrive. New kingdoms rise. Ancient Greece eventually comes under the influence of powerful neighbors. The Macedonians expand their empire under Alexander the Great. Greek language spreads across distant lands. Cities inspired by Greek culture appear throughout Egypt, Persia, and beyond. Even after Alexander's empire fades, Greek learning continues traveling. Hundreds of years later, the mighty Roman Empire rises. Roman soldiers conquer Greece. Many people assume Greek civilization has ended forever. Curiously, the opposite begins to happen. Rome conquers Greece. But Greece quietly conquers Rome through knowledge. Roman children study Greek philosophy. Roman physicians read the writings of Hippocrates. Roman teachers admire Plato. Roman leaders quote Aristotle. The ideas born beneath olive trees continue shaping minds across an entirely new empire. Scrolls filled with Greek knowledge are copied again and again by careful hands. Libraries preserve ancient wisdom. Teachers pass ideas from one generation to the next. Sometimes, only a single handwritten copy saves an entire book from disappearing forever. History can be surprisingly fragile. One fire. One flood. One forgotten library. Could erase centuries of knowledge. Yet somehow, many of these precious writings survive. As the centuries pass, Europe enters the Middle Ages. Some ancient books disappear. Others remain hidden inside quiet monasteries where dedicated monks patiently copy each page by candlelight. Outside, kingdoms rise and fall. Wars begin and end. Plagues sweep across continents. Still, the words of Greek thinkers continue waiting quietly upon dusty shelves. Eventually, the Renaissance arrives. Artists, scientists, doctors, philosophers. Once again, they open those ancient books. Leonardo da Vinci studies human anatomy. Scholars translate Aristotle. Medical schools return to Hippocrates. Curiosity awakens once more. The questions asked in ancient Greece begin inspiring a new generation. What causes illness? What creates happiness? How should we live? What is the purpose of knowledge? These questions remain remarkably familiar. Today, thousands of years later, modern hospitals use technologies Hippocrates could never have imagined. Doctors examine the brain with detailed scanners. Scientists study tiny neurons communicating through invisible electrical signals. Psychologists develop therapies supported by careful research. Medicines help millions of people living with depression and other mental health conditions. Human understanding has grown enormously. Yet, something beautiful remains unchanged. The desire to understand ourselves. Just like the physicians of ancient Greece, modern scientists continue asking questions. Just like Socrates, therapists often begin conversations by listening carefully. Just like Aristotle, researchers observe nature before reaching conclusions. Just like the musicians performing beneath the stars, artists continue helping people express emotions words cannot fully describe. Perhaps every generation adds another small piece to humanity's understanding. No single civilization discovers every answer. Knowledge grows, one question at a time. As dawn begins appearing on the distant horizon, our journey slowly comes full circle. Another morning begins over Greece. The same sunlight touches the ancient hills. The same sea reflects the golden sky. Olive trees continue growing where philosophers once walked. Visitors now explore the ruins where great schools once stood. Children still laugh among the old stone streets. History has changed. Human nature. Not nearly as much. People still seek friendship. Still search for meaning. Still experience joy. Still struggle with sadness. Still hope tomorrow will be brighter than today. Perhaps that is why ancient Greece continues fascinating us. Not because its people possessed every answer, but because they were brave enough to ask extraordinary questions. Questions that still echo across thousands of years. As our peaceful journey reaches its end, imagine yourself once more walking slowly through an ancient olive grove. The morning breeze feels cool against your face. Birds sing gently overhead. Sunlight filters through silver-green leaves. Everything is calm. Everything is quiet. You take one final look toward the distant city of Athens. Its temples stand silently against the morning sky. A reminder that civilizations may fade. Marble may weather. Empires may disappear. But curiosity, compassion, and the human desire to understand one another can endure forever. Thank you for joining this gentle journey through the ancient world. May your evening be peaceful. May your mind be calm. And may history continue to remind us that every generation is part of one long, shared human story. Good night.